Su Qing grew up in an orphanage and developed a sensitive and insecure personality. As she grew up, she was extremely uncomfortable with the intricacies and intrigues in the workplace. In the end, he suffered from a mental breakdown and developed social anxiety disorder. He could only stay at home and live alone. When she was old and suffering from a terminal illness, she waited in the hospital to die. For some reason, when she opened her eyes, she became a 3-year-old girl, and her parents were divorcing. She can't even care about adults, just silently observe. After divorce, my mother was irritable. Fortunately, she also had a grandmother who loved her. Oh! Is this world so strange? Su Qing decided to integrate into her new life and learn to communicate with others without fear. Unexpectedly, the jade pendant left by Cheap Dad turned out to be a family heirloom, containing a trace of the ancestral spirit. Alright, you are the eldest ancestor, and I will listen to you. Su Qinggang used her abilities to improve her family's life, and her mother took all the money from the family and ran away with someone. The heavens just don't like her and always want her to be an orphan. At the age of 3, Su Qing clenched her small fist and said, "I won't give in. I want to go to school and become the most powerful psychic in the empire." Grandma looked surprised and said, "School? No, school doesn't accept children." Keywords of the novel. StarCraft Super Plant Trainer No Pop-ups, StarCraft Super Plant Trainer TXT Complete Collection Download, StarCraft Super Plant Trainer Latest Chapter Reading. Chapter 1. Crying Back to Mother's Home. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Crying back to mother's home without opening her eyes. Su Qing heard the woman's sad crying and felt like she was moving with something. Her head was dizzy, and she worked hard for half a day to gradually control her body. She opened her heavy eyes and found that it was night, and the dim moonlight only allowed her to see the situation around her slightly more clearly. I was carried on my back by a woman who was crying and walking forward, muttering something to herself. On a pitch-black night, gusts of cold wind blew, making Su Qing feel very cold, especially her feet, bare and exposed, with no shoes or socks on. Can it not be cold? Who is this woman? She doesn't sleep at night and carries herself on her back. Where is she going? Isn't he still going to die? How did she take her out of the hospital? Su Qing's final memory is that her condition worsened, and the doctor had no other choice but to rely on painkillers to alleviate the pain. Su Qing has no family, never married in her lifetime, and has been lonely until old age. She has severe social anxiety disorder and was able to communicate with others when she was young. She also went out to work, but her condition worsened and she could only stay at home. Over time, I have become unable to speak and my personality has become solitary and indifferent. My only hobby is reading online novels, passing the time, and sinking into a fictional world woven together. She sometimes fantasizes about becoming a shining character like the protagonist and having a beautiful and brilliant life. Unfortunately, she was just a lonely woman. Now that her life has come to an end, thinking about the plot in those stories, her biggest wish before falling into a coma was, if life could really start over, I would try to step out of the locked heart and become a normal person. At that time, the excruciating pain struck, making her eyes black and she knew nothing. When she woke up, she found herself being carried on the road by a woman. Who is she? Where is this? Why is she crying so sadly? Where else are you going when it gets dark? Su Qing's mind was full of questions. She was attached to the woman's back, and she could see that she had long hair and a scent of grass all over her body. By the faint moonlight in the sky, I could see them walking on the street, with dark houses and courtyard walls on both sides. Where exactly is this? Move your hand. Su Qingmeng was startled. This was not her own hand. So small, did her hand shrink. It's obvious that this is a child's palm. My mind was filled with confusion. What was going on? Was she reborn through time travel, or was she reborn from a dead body? With so many online novels, I wouldn't have been reading too many novels and dreaming, would I? She envies the life of the female protagonist in the novel, so she dreams of being reborn into her childhood. but she doesn't remember this plot. Is a woman her own mother? The impression of Su Qing's parents in her memory is very vague. She only knows that her father has left, and her mother is also missing. She grew up in a community orphanage and developed a solitary and autistic personality, which is not pleasing anywhere. Fortunately, the social welfare is good, with free education and a monthly living allowance from the community until she reaches the age of 18. After entering social work, everything made her extremely uncomfortable, and she was met with various attacks such as glare, contempt, and insults. She, who is already introverted, always feels mentally tense and almost collapses. She no longer wants to face those ugly faces. Society is too complex, and people's hearts are too scary. She quit her job and stayed at home day by day, relying on some online part-time jobs to make a living. As long as it wasn't for face-to-face communication, she could still live a normal life. She became a strange person who had no friends, no family, no love, and no marriage. She spent her time in despair until she fell seriously ill and was admitted to the hospital. She fainted in the hospital before dreaming back to her childhood, Su Qing's mind racing. The woman walked on the street for about 10 minutes and stopped outside a courtyard. She grabbed the child behind her with one hand, slammed the door with the other, and shouted with a crying voice. "Mom, I'm Mingwan. Please open the door." The originally pitch-black room suddenly lit up, and a woman in her 50s walked out and opened the courtyard door, her voice filled with surprise. "Mingwan, it's so late. Why did you go home and bring Qing with you? Hurry up inside the house." The woman inserted the door and, after entering the room, under the dim light, saw her granddaughter on the bed dressed in thin clothes and bare white feet. She angrily scolded her daughter, "Mingwan, she doesn't sleep at home at night. She doesn't bring her child over to do anything, doesn't give Qing extra clothes, and goes out barefoot without putting on socks. Look at how cold these little feet are." Zhu Xiuyun scolded her daughter, holding the child's feet with both hands and watching her granddaughter with big black eyes staring at her. She was about to tuck the child into the bed. "Mom." Su Mingwan couldn't help but throw herself into her mother's arms when she saw her mother. With a loud cry, she burst into tears, making people feel heartbroken and extremely sad. Zhu Xiuyun only realized that something was wrong with her daughter. The lights in the room were dim, and she also paid attention at first. It wasn't until her daughter lay on top of her and cried bitterly that she realized that Mingwan was also dressed thinly, with red and swollen eyes. What was going on? She quickly asked. "Mingwan, don't cry. Tell your mother what's going on. Is it because your mother-in-law is making you angry?" Su Mingwan clenched her crying eyes and shouted sadly, "Mom, Mu Bai wants to divorce me. He doesn't want us as women anymore." "What are you talking about? Divorce?" Zhu Xiuyun's mind exploded for a moment, and her eyes darkened. She almost collapsed on the bed, shook her head, and gathered her energy to ask. "For no reason, why did he divorce you? When he married you back then, what he said was nothing but farting. The Li family bullied people too much. If your father was still alive, would he dare? If it weren't for him, Li Mubai, could your father have been bitten to death by a wolf? This death is heartless." Su Mingwan sobbed and said. "Mom, the Li family's legitimate lineage has produced a 7th-level talent for a wood-type superpower master, who has been admitted to the Central Galaxy Academy. The entire Blue Morning Star has caused a sensation. The Li family is about to develop, and the legitimate branch wants to take Li Mubai and his family back. My mother-in-law said that when it comes to the Blue Morning Star, Mu Bai is the young master of the Li family, so I am not worthy of him. Some noble women marry him. She asked us to divorce immediately, and Qing and the others didn't want her either. They thought she was a girl and didn't have any special abilities. What should I do, Mom?" Su Mingwan's tears flowed down, and when she remembered what the Li family had said, she felt heartbroken and aggrieved, holding her breath in her heart. Zhu Xiuyun's daughter's crying across from her was heartbreaking. 10 years ago, the Li family committed a crime on the Blue Morning Star and was expelled and exiled to Dream Moon Star, a primitive planet that settled in Shanquan village. At that time, Li Mubai was still young. Mingzhuan's father is the village chief of Shanquan village, who holds some power. Li Chuanzhong and Zhang Liang try their best to curry favor with the man from his family. The Li family was exiled and had just arrived in the village, living in poverty. They had no houses, land, or money, and their family of several couldn't even do simple household chores well. If it weren't for Mingzhuan's father Su Jing, as the village chief, taking care of their family, the Li family would have starved to death long ago, and the whole family would not be suitable for work. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Returning from Defeat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Returning from defeat. Now that the Li family has developed, if they can go back to the Blue Morning Star and live a good life, they don't want her daughter. They have beautiful thoughts and a family with bad eyes. Zhu Xiuyun was furious and immediately stood up. Let's go, Mingwan. I'll go find Li Chuanzhong. Zhang Liang asked clearly, why don't you guys? Over the years, you've been working hard for the Li family and supporting them. Your father also died to save Li Mubai. Do they have a conscience? Zhu Xiuyun used to be the daughter-in-law of the village chief, and she had a sharp temper. She immediately changed into outdoor clothes and found a coat for her daughter to wear. She was going to settle accounts with the Li family. Zhu Xiuyun covered her granddaughter's bed with a blanket and said, Qing, Grandma and Mom are going out. You should sleep well at home. Su Qing looked at the middle-aged woman in front of her and nodded. Next to her, Su Mingwan looked at her with complex eyes, her beautiful face full of sorrow, and she still refused to believe that her husband was going to divorce her. In the evening, I came home from working in the field, did laundry and cooking, and finished all the household chores. When my mother-in-law informed me of this news, it was like a bolt from the blue. She questioned her husband, only to receive a stuttering answer. In a fit of anger, she picked up the child and ran back to her mother's house. With her mother making the decision for her, the mother and daughter must ask clearly. She doesn't believe that her beloved husband will not want her and her daughter anymore. The mother and daughter left the house and locked the door, afraid of their children running around. They locked the house and felt at ease. They went to the Li family to seek justice, but they definitely couldn't bring their children with them. After the two of them left, the room was quiet, leaving only Su Qing herself. She lifted the blanket and sat up, looking around. The house is made of ordinary earth and stone structure, and the bed underneath is also an ordinary wooden bed. The furniture and decorations inside the house have been used for many years. Raise your small hands, white and thin, with slender arms and legs without any flesh. Unlike typical children who look like lotus root nodes, it appears to be lacking in nutrition. She had just arrived here and couldn't figure out what was going on, so she could only become a little familiar. The woman named Mingwan is her mother, and the older woman is her grandmother. Her father is going to divorce her mother, so her mother runs back to her mother's house crying on her back at night. Hey! As soon as he encounters such a tough and cruel plot, when a man becomes wealthy, he will have to abandon his wife and children. She looked down and saw a pair of shoes under the bed. She jumped out of the bed and put them on her feet. Unfortunately, her feet were too small. The shoes were 3 feet the size of hers. Su Qing walked around the room, pulling on her shoes. It was a 1 light and 2 dark house, with a living room in the middle and bedrooms on both sides. The house was built of stone and wood, and its structure was very primitive. But there was something special inside, and she didn't know what it was for. The door to the outer room was locked and she couldn't get out. Peeling through the crack of the door, one can see the small courtyard outside, with trees, flowers, and some miscellaneous items. There are 2 rooms on each side, which are dark and not very clear. With a gurgling sound, Su Qing rubbed her stomach and felt very hungry. How did Su Mingwan take care of her daughter, and didn't even let her food be full? I can't complain about being thin and small. I found a cabinet in the living room that looked like a refrigerator, climbed up a stool, and tried to open the door. Immediately, I showed a surprised expression. What was that all about? A cabinet similar to a refrigerator contains many bags of liquid, including green, yellow, red, and white. What are these things? Beverages or yogurt? That's right. This is the refrigerator, still emitting a hint of coolness. Why isn't there any food left? It's all these things, not even a label. I don't know if it's drinkable. Su Qing didn't dare to move things she didn't know. She looked up from the first shelf and found nothing except for these bags. She couldn't reach or see the top row, so she had to close the door and come down first. Stepping on and pulling on shoes, taking 2 steps requires stuffing your feet into the shoes, otherwise your feet will run out, which is very inconvenient. Turning around in 3 rooms, it seems that the kitchen is in the side room of the yard, and there is nothing to eat in the room. Su Qing can only endure hunger until her grandmother and mother come back. Fortunately, she is not a child and can still endure it. The house is not particularly unique, but the style is a bit rough, unlike Su Qing's habit of fine decoration. Some of the decorations are also unclear, and the wall seems to be hanging with a TV. Where are the switches? After searching for a while, Su Qing didn't know where the switch was, so she had to give up watching TV, patrol around the room to see what clues can be found. In order to understand what place and era this is, why has she never had memories of this place? Isn't it rebirth to her childhood, but a journey through another world? Su Qing's childhood memories are very vague. She only remembers that her father is missing and her mother is missing. She grew up in a community orphanage and doesn't remember where her home is or what it is. It's also unclear whether her mother's name is Su Mingwan. She was full of curiosity about this home. Grandma should be a clean and tidy woman, with the room spotless and everything neatly arranged. The wooden frame in the corner was filled with potted plants, and it was unknown what kind of green plants were inside. The wooden frame was taller than Su Qing's. She raised her toes and fingers to touch the flower pot. She looked up, but it was just a pot of flowers and was not interested. I touched my stomach and felt very hungry. I searched around and didn't have anything to eat. It's better to lie in bed and sleep. When I wait for my grandmother and mother to come back, I don't know what kind of situation they will encounter. According to a typical script, her mother is bound to be ruthlessly abandoned. When a man climbs a high pole, the first thing is to change his wife. I'm just a child now and I can't control myself. Let's gradually understand this world first. Stretching out his arms and legs, he struggled to climb onto the bed, covered himself with a blanket and soon fell asleep. Hearing the sound of crying in a daze, my heart became restless. Who is bothering me? I don't know if she is a patient. Su Qing opened her eyes and found that the lights were on in the room. It wasn't even light yet. Where is this? Not the hospital, just waking up. My mind was a bit dizzy. After a while, I remembered that I had dreamt of becoming a child. Isn't that a dream? She really traveled through time. Su Mingwan leaned against the wall, sobbing uncontrollably, while Zhu Xiuyun kept wiping away her tears and shouting, "Li family's dead mother. In law, it's hard to die. My conscience has been eaten by the dog." Li Chuanzhong is also shameless, forgetting how he knelt and licked the face of my old song and how much energy food Li Mubai ate from our family. Your father and I are reluctant to eat. What you left for you, you silly girl, is all for that white-eyed wolf to eat. Your father was even killed by him. Now their family wants to sweep you two out of the house. Is there still such a heartless family in the world? Su Mingwan choked up and said, "Mom, what will I do in the future? Qingqing won't have a father anymore." Zhu Xiuyun has a fiery personality, unlike her daughter. She is pure, kind, and gentle. It's all because her husband and wife have protected their children too well. She doesn't know that people are dangerous, and now she regrets it. We went to the Li family, and you also saw Zhang Liang's expression. Their family is determined to abandon you. This is the end of the matter, so you should accept your fate and divorce, let their family compensate you and Qing. Tomorrow, I will go to the Li family with your second uncle and village chief. If you don't agree to my terms, don't try to leave Shanquan village. My Su family girl is not that bullied. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Breaking off relationships. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Breaking off relationships. Su Mingwan doesn't care what her mother says, crying all the time. Even now, she can't believe that Mu Bai, who grew up together, doesn't want her anymore. Her heart hurts like a knife. Su Qing silently looked at the mother and daughter, and without any accidents, she came to question them and was humiliated before being kicked out of the house. As soon as Zhu Xiuyun turned around and saw her granddaughter's pitch-black big eyes, she immediately wiped away her tears. Mingwan, for which family of animals, cry whatever you want, wake up the children, go to bed quickly, and call someone tomorrow morning to go to the Li family to settle the accounts together. Su Mingwan glanced at her little daughter, wiped away her tears, and obediently went to bed, but she could sleep there. Recalling the little things she had with her husband in her heart, she didn't believe it and kept saying she loved her for a lifetime. A man who would marry even if she had a falling out with her parents, would abandon her. Qing Changhe is very similar to Mu Bai, with eyebrows, eyes, and skin. She used to love so much, but now she hates so much. Biting her lower lip, her mind is chaotic and mixed, flashing one image after another. 10-year-old Su Mingwan was stunned when she first saw Li Mubai. Her father asked her to call her brother Mubai. Su Mingwan, who was charming, had never seen a boy like Li Mubai, with fair skin and neat clothes. He sat there, pursed his lips, and his eyes flickered with pride and disdain. After that day, the Li family and his wife came to the Su family every day to flatter her father, take good care of their family, and arrange for them to do a relaxed job. The Li family was exiled to Dream Moon Star and didn't bring much when they arrived. Her father saw that their family really didn't know how to do village work, so he had to take care of them a bit. She followed behind Li Mubai every day, liking everything about him. In the blink of an eye, a few years passed, and they all grew up. Li Chuanzhong and Zhang Liang, the couple, were afraid that their youngest son would not be able to marry a daughter-in-law, so they took up the idea of Su Mingwan. Li Mubai was pampered and raised by his parents since childhood. Even if his whole family was exiled, adults suffered and took care of him. He has developed a lazy personality since he grew up. He works tirelessly and is not as capable as his own nephew. Although she has a handsome face, it's a pity that in Shanquan village, no one would marry their daughter to a man who relies solely on others for support. Su Mingwan is the only daughter of village chief Su Jing. She is beautiful, has a simple personality, and can still work, taking care of the planting fields at home, digging herbs up the mountains, capturing exotic animals, and being proficient in everything. He is the admired object of the young people in the village. If Li Mubai marries Su Mingwan, the Li family and his wife will feel at ease, and they will visit Su Mingwan with their youngest son every day, pursuing her. Li Mubai may seem lazy, but he has a sweet mouth and can say good things. Growing up with Su Mingwan, their relationship is quite good. In addition, he also knew that he couldn't go back to his previous home and could only accept his fate to marry a village girl as his wife. Su Mingwan was nothing in a big city, but a beautiful village flower in Shanquan village. Li Mubai launched a love attack, and Su Mingwan immediately surrendered. When her father found out, it was too late to oppose. Zhu Xiuyun and Su village chief earnestly advised. It doesn't make sense for my daughter's heart that has been overwhelmed by love. Daughter, the Li family is not the same as us. Although they are down and out, they are still full of arrogance and look at people with their noses. Besides, Zhang Liang has a big temper and is unruly. You are also a gentle person. How can you live under the hands of such a mother-in-law? Su Mingwan pouted. Mom, Aunt Zhang is not good as you said. Every time I go to her house, she treats me well. Also, let me tell you, Mu Bai said that the Li family has a thick family background. When he comes to our place, his father brought a lot of valuable things. When we get married, he will split up and let us live alone. Zhu Xiuyun looked at her daughter, who looked full of longing for the future, knowing that it was useless to say anything. It's really possible for the young couple to have a 1.1 relationship, but it's still okay. They can live together and support each other, so we can also make ends meet. Mr. Su's face was ugly, and he didn't look at his daughter either. He said heavily, "If you insist on marrying Li Mubai, you will never be my daughter again. You will die of exhaustion, starvation, and being bullied by your mother-in-law's family. We will not stand up for you and tell you that it is not suitable for you to marry. Don't regret it in the future. Your parents raised you so much, how could they harm you? If you don't listen, you can leave." Zhu Xiuyun exclaimed in surprise, "Old man, this is the only girl we have. Mingwan, just promise your father not to think about Mu Bai, let's find another good young man." This is the last opportunity given by village chief Su to his daughter. As the child is raised, he cannot understand the profound strategies that parents must take to love their children. Disobedience to parents is like stabbing a knife in their hearts. He wants to see if it's important for his parents or that slick kid. What kind of character does the Li family have? He has developed it for over a decade. Parents, please forgive my daughter's unfilial behavior. I like Mu Bai and want to live with him. I can't live without him. Su Mingjuan's slightly red pretty face was wrinkled together, with tearful eyes. She didn't believe her parents didn't want her anymore. Su village chief covered his heart and felt the pain from childhood to adulthood. The treasure he held in his palm was truly a sharp stab to him. Then get out of here. I don't have a shameless daughter like you who disregards your parents' kindness. Her father. Zhu Xiuyun grabbed her husband's arm. Su village chief pushed his wife away, reached out his hand, and sternly scolded, "You don't want your parents for such a non-man thing, so get out of here for me. My Su family doesn't have a daughter like you who is not as sensible. You don't want your parents' daughter for the sake of a man." Su Mingwan was also frightened by her father's angry scolding, but when she remembered what Aunt Zhang had said, she mustered up her courage. She and Mu Beige truly love each other, and they will be filial to their parents together in the future. Seeing that no matter what she said or begged, her father refused to agree to her marriage with Mu Bai, and even cursed at her. Tears of grievance streamed down his face, and he burst into tears and ran out of the house. "Hey, Mingwan, Mingwan, don't run." Zhu Xiuyun chased after her. "You come back to me, from today on, let's just pretend that we never gave birth to her and that day she regrets it." Su village grew up shouting, covering his heart, tears streaming down his face. As a man, he rarely shed tears, but he had long foreseen the tragic ending of his daughter. For a lifetime, he worked as a cattle, horse, and animal for the Li family. He cherished his daughter for 20 years, so why don't he feel sorry? Despite opposition from her parents, Su Mingwan insisted on marrying Li Mubai, completely falling out with her parents. The Su and Li families stopped talking, and Zhang Liang thought that Su village chief would be angry for a while. Mu Bai married Su Mingwan and would definitely take better care of their family. Unexpectedly, he miscalculated and Su, the village chief, severed ties with his daughter, harboring a deep hatred towards the Li family. In the past, there was no need to take care of anything. When they went to the mountains to collect herbs and catch exotic animals, the Li family couldn't resist them. If they couldn't complete their tasks, they would have limited food and couldn't even eat enough. Now the Li family is going to suffer a lot, and their eldest son Li Muyun and his daughter-in-law Lin Fang take advantage of this situation to argue for a separation. In the end, Li Muyun and his wife fulfilled their wish to go solo, while the older couple played with their younger son. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Death in the Mountains. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 4 Death in the Mountains. Su Mingxuan's dissatisfaction was of no use. Li Mubai had a sweet tongue, and a few good words made her forget the Li family's back and forth. But after the family split, it was the beginning of Su Mingxuan's suffering. Li Muyun and the three of them passed alone, and the remaining three of the Li family were all supported by Su Mingxuan, a just 20-year-old daughter. Law. Go up the mountain to chop firewood, plant on the ground, dig wild vegetables in the mountain, follow the men in the village on missions to hunt down exotic beasts. Other families are all men entering the mountain, so Lao Li's family asked Su Mingxuan to go. When he returned home, he had to do laundry, cook, and tidy up household chores. If he had any problems, he would be scolded by his parents-in-law, and Li Mubai didn't care. As long as he had enough food and drink, he would not worry about anything and would go to the town to play whenever he had nothing to do. Su Mingxuan went to find her parents to make decisions for her, but Su village chief didn't even let her in. Zhu Xiuyun looked at her flower-like daughter who was thin into a bamboo pole, touched her tears, and advised her, "Wan, if it doesn't work, we'll get divorced." His old Li family is not human, they are lazy bones, and not a serious family. You raised the whole family alone, not to marry you back as a daughter. Law, but to use you as a laborer. Wan, taking advantage of our youth, we can still find another suitable one. Mom, how could you say that? I married Mubai to live with him for the rest of my life, and I will never divorce. Su Mingxuan ran away in anger. What a naive girl she was getting married to. She knew clearly in her heart whether her husband's family treated her well or not, but although her in-laws looked down on her, her husband was still very kind to her. He kept asking for warmth and comfort every day. When she thought about it, her heart was as sweet as honey, no matter how hard or tiring it was as sweet as honey. Zhu Xiuyun's eyes turned red as she watched her daughter run away. Silly child, why are you disobedient? Who are we all doing this for? Watching their precious child being honed by others, the hearts of the Su family and his wife were dripping with blood. The child was not sensible and simply did not understand the feelings of their parents. Zhang Liang fiercely honed Mingxuan, just to appease the old man. If you don't take care of my family, I will torture your daughter. Village Chief Su was also ruthless and indifferent to his daughter's situation. How could the Li family have suffered? Su Mingxuan chose her own path and knelt down, crawling with blood all the way. Although Su Jing was a small village chief from a primitive planet with little knowledge, he was very shrewd and could tell at a glance that the Li family was planning, so he gritted his teeth and persisted, seeing who was ruthless. If he really cared about the child, the entire Li family would have to lie on top of the three of them and suck blood in the future. He disregarded everything, and when the child woke up and left the Li family, it was not difficult for him to find another good family based on their family background. Unfortunately, Su Jing had a good idea in her heart, but things didn't go as planned. Su Mingxuan was pregnant, and now Zhu Xiuyun couldn't help but, they only have one daughter, the child is pregnant, and the three members of the Li family still use the child as livestock. How could she bear it? She began to deliver nutritional supplements to Su Mingxuan, both openly and secretly. As soon as she left, she immediately entered the mouths of the three members of the Li family. Village Chief Su didn't let his wife be busy in vain, and his daughter didn't even take a bite. Energy food is so expensive, it was all bought through their blood and sweat, all cheap for the shameless Li family of three. Just find an opportunity to ask your daughter to go back to her mother's house and eat before returning. Su Jing looked at her son. Law, who was idle all day and had no choice but to arrange for Li Mubai to deliver goods to the town, bring villagers into the mountains every day to collect wild vegetables, herbs, and exotic beasts, and send them to the town's purchasing station to exchange for interstellar coins. This life is easy, earning a lot of money, at least enough to eat. They will have to raise children in the future, and they hope the Li family will starve to death. When the Li family first arrived, they were diligent and hardworking. After a period of time, the whole family relied on their eldest son and his wife to support them. Now, they rely on their daughter. Every time they see her body drifting away in the wind, both husband and wife are torn apart. When her granddaughter was born, Zhu Xiuyun couldn't help but go to give birth to her daughter, otherwise, Zhang Liang's mother-in-law could have done something to make Mingwan take care of their entire family during her confinement. When she goes, Zhang Liang still needs to be more cautious and dare not really offend the Su family. The granddaughter is named Qing. Children born in the Galactic Empire need to test their talents to see if they have the talent of a psychic or an interstellar warrior, and what level of qualification they have. For children with exceptional qualifications, the Empire will provide funding to assist them in their cultivation. In the future, education will be free, and the outstanding ones can also be admitted to various colleges in the Central Galaxy. Unfortunately, when Qing was 1 year old, he went to the town medical center for testing, but lacked any talent, which greatly disappointed everyone. Her father Li Mubai has a talent for third-level interstellar warriors, and Su Mingwan also has a talent for second-level planters. Su village chief doesn't understand why her granddaughter doesn't have any talent at all. Qualifications like Li Mubai and others do not reach the level of imperial cultivation. If the family has money, they can raise them at their own expense. If they don't have money, they will just become ordinary people. It should be because their talent limits their future development. No matter how they cultivate, they can also break through the limitations of tribal genes. Su Mingwan is just an ordinary person. Although Li Mubai has a decent physique, she is far from the standard to join the Imperial Army. The minimum starting point for the Galactic Empire Starfleet is level 6. So the Li family extremely dislikes this little granddaughter who has no talent at all. Su Mingwan goes to work during the day and has no time to take care of her children, often making them hungry and full. Qing's birth forced Su Jing to grit his teeth and swallow his blood. He accepted Li Mubai and planned to train this lazy uncle, at least for a big man to be able to support his family. The whole family depends on his daughter. Unfortunately, unexpected events happened. When Su village chief brought people into the mountain to hunt down exotic beasts, he encountered a fierce bear and started fighting. Originally, there were many villagers, so it's not impossible to kill the bear beast. If we really want to take a bear beast back, it can sell for a lot of money, and the whole village can share a share. At that time, everyone was attacking with weapons, but Li Mubai was so scared that he ran around and unexpectedly attracted a fierce wolf. Due to a shortage of manpower, village chief Su asked everyone to retreat. Everyone else is fine, but Li Mubai is so scared that he can't even run and is not as good as ordinary villagers. He really doesn't understand what he usually does. Li Mubai ran behind everyone, and the wind wolf was known for its speed, biting him to death with just one bite. It was Su Jing who risked his life to pull him, but Li Mubai pushed his father-in-law. Su Jing stumbled down and didn't stand firm. At this pause, he met the big mouth of the wind wolf and quickly swung his large axe to chop it up. The villagers saw the village chief falling behind and returning one after another. Before they could get close, they saw the village chief wielding an axe on the body of the wind wolf. The wind wolf bit the village chief's neck, causing both sides to suffer losses. A villager saw the situation at the time and shouted, "It's all Li Mubai." The village chief kindly gave him a hand, but he sent the village chief to the wolf's mouth. Li Mubai trembled and shed tears. "I didn't mean to, I was just afraid. I'm sorry, my talent is higher than ours. I dare not even kill exotic beasts." "Are you a man? Don't make any noise," look at the village chief quickly. "Hurry up, everyone. Kill the wolf and let out a breath." Open the wolf's mouth. Half of the village chief's neck was covered in blood and flesh. He quickly sprayed hemostatic medicine and wrapped it with a bandage. Some carried the village chief's back, while others carried the wolf's body. He quickly ran down the mountain towards the village. Fortunately, the fierce bear ran slowly and couldn't catch up with them. It was enough to reach the village. The exotic beasts dared not descend the mountain, and there were stationed troops nearby. They also had to quickly send the village chief to the town hospital. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Filing for divorce. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Filing for divorce. Before everyone could carry Sioux village chief into the village, he was suffocated. Zhu Xiuyun hugged her husband and burst into tears, cursing at Li Mubai. Li Mubai knelt on the ground, crying bitterly, saying that he didn't mean to, he was just afraid. Su Mingwan knows how to cry, with her father on one side and her husband on the other. What can she do? Mom, please forgive Mubai. He didn't mean to. Zhu Xiuyun couldn't believe her gaze as she looked at her daughter and finally understood the profound meaning behind her husband's words. Her daughter had already been lost by the Li family. This girl has been raised for nothing, and even though her loving father has died, she can still help her husband plead for mercy, but surprisingly there is not much sadness. Son, get up, you're right. Zhang Liang ran over with great enthusiasm and shouted loudly when she saw her kneeling son. Zhu Xiuyun, let me tell you, the death of village chief Su has nothing to do with my son. If it weren't for his insistence on my son entering the mountains, would he encounter danger? I didn't agree to let Mubai go into the mountain to fight against exotic beasts. Is my son a person who does rough work? I haven't accounted to the village chief for the danger yet. He should have protected my son. Who made him my son's father? In law. If he dies, he will be considered unlucky. Zhu Xiuyun's heart rose and fell, almost spitting out a mouthful of blood. Faced with the bold and shameless person's forced words and reasoning, she shouted loudly, Zhang Liang, are your whole family all animals? If you don't go fight exotic beasts and wait for the wind to blow, dare you say my husband died trying to save your son? It's your own misfortune, but your son pushed him. Zhu Xiuyun hoarsely uttered her last sentence, her face burning with anger as if she wanted to eat the mother and son raw. Zhang Liang's words were too heartless and inhumane, and no one would say them like that. Death is greater than death. Zhang Liang shrank and immediately raised her neck with a jerk. My son said, it wasn't intentional. After everyone died, what else do you want? Let my son sacrifice his life and let your daughter become a widow. Let's go, son. Kneeling up, Li Mubai was about to leave. Previously, Su Jing was the village chief, and she was a bit hesitant. She hoped to arrange a good job and earn a few more interstellar coins. Now that people are also dead, she is afraid of what she will do. Besides, Su Mingwan is her own daughter. In law, and she doesn't want to be arbitrary. Zhu Xiuyun is a woman, and she is not afraid. After taking 2 steps, she turned around and said with a cross on her waist. My son is frightened. Let's go back and rest first. Don't forget, that wolf has my son's share. I see who dares to be greedy. Surrounded by villagers pointing and pointing, the villagers who entered the mountain together were indignant and wanted to come forward and argue with her. They scolded the Li family mother and son, but were stopped by someone who whispered a few words in his ear. The person suppressed their anger and glared at them angrily. In my heart, I thought to myself that the 2 families were relatives, and I had to act recklessly. When I turned around, I struggled and didn't please the village chief's daughter. I didn't even make a fuss, but I pitied that Su's death was not worth it. Zhu Xiuyun's heartache made her daughter cry, so she had to wipe away her tears and hold a funeral organized by the villagers and Su village chief's younger brother. She was extremely disappointed with her daughter Su Mingwan and didn't say a word to her. It wasn't until 2 years after the death of village chief Su that Zhu Xiuyun finally walked out and gave her a good face, also for the sake of her granddaughter, and the Li family further tormented Su Mingwan, until today when she returned home from the field and served the whole family to eat. My mother. In law Zhang Liang just said that their family is going back to the Blue Morning Star. From now on, they will be people from the medium galaxy, and they are of the upper class. She is a mountain girl from a primitive planet who is not worthy of her precious son, so she directly asked them to divorce. Faced with her husband's silence, her in-laws looked disdainfully at her, thinking about her sacrifice and dedication in the years since marrying into the Li family. Even my father died trying to save Mu Bai, and my mother blamed herself for it. She has put in so much effort, and now that their family wants to develop, they don't want to be themselves. Su Mingwan didn't believe it and looked forward to looking at her husband. Mu Bai, you wouldn't agree, would you? Mingwan, our divorce is good for both parties. We are not originally from the same world, and even if we meet, we will eventually separate. I cannot adapt to this place, and you cannot enter my life. You will regret it even if you persist until the end. Su Mingwan couldn't believe that she gave her husband a glance. Mu Bai, what do you mean by that? Didn't you say you love me, never change for a lifetime, and you just like me? I don't believe you're saying we're not suitable now. Zhang Liang pouted and sarcastically said. If there's anything I don't believe, it's all my son coaxing you. Otherwise, your parents can take care of our family. Can you work hard to support us? My son is so excellent. Looking at you, you smell of dirt every day, which is worthy of my son. With your daughter who has no talent at all, you leave our Li family happily. Su Mingjuan's lips were trembling, and her parents had repeatedly told her that the Li family was using her and had no intention of treating her well. She never cared about it, and now that her mother-in-law has pointed it out, she feels like she has been stabbed in the heart, staring at her husband. Li Mubai's gaze dodged, afraid to look at his wife. He and Mingwan had some affection, but returning to the Blue Morning Star was more important. When he returned to the city, he couldn't have a wife like Mingwan, and could only abandon her cruelly. Alright, let them go to the town tomorrow to complete the procedures. It's getting late and they all go back to their rooms to sleep. Li Chuanzhong remained silent and let his wife take the lead. When the matter was finished, he was equivalent to giving the verdict. Su Mingjuan's tears streamed down her face, not knowing whether she was heartless for her husband or for the unworthiness of her years of hard work. The saddest thing was that even if she said she loved her for a lifetime, Mu Bai's brother would change his heart. Returning to the room, I saw my little daughter on the bed with her fingers in her mouth. Tears welled up, and they didn't even want her anymore. Isn't Mu Bai the one who loves his daughter the most? Why? Suddenly, everything changed, and it turned out that the happiness I thought was just a facade. Li Mubai came in and expected AI to say. Mingwan, originally your parents didn't agree for us to be together. We divorced, and your mother must be very happy. Why are you crying? You should be happy. Upon hearing her husband's words, Su Mingjuan's previous vows of alliance and seemed like a joke. I disobeyed and rebelled against my parents, causing my father to die. In exchange for being abandoned, I raised my hand in anger and slapped Li Mubai with a loud slap. Li Mubai, are you a beast? Are your words still human? Carrying the child to bed, Qing, let's go and find grandma. Tears streamed down my heart as I stumbled out the door. Li Mubai covered his face and shouted, Hey, Mingwan, where are you going tonight? You can move out tomorrow. Li Mubai's words shattered Su Mingjuan's heart and she ran out in panic and disappointment. On the way, Su Qing happened to cross over to the little girl and together they arrived at Su Mingjuan's mother's house. Of course, these things were all told to Su Qing by her grandmother sporadically after a period of time. Now she doesn't know those past events. After Zhu Xiuyun turned off the lights, there was silence in the room. How could the mother and daughter sleep well? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Too Bad to Eat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Too Bad to Eat. Only Su Qing slept soundly. I don't know how long it would take, but someone called her in their ear, Qing, wake up, it's time to get up. Su Qing opened her eyes and only realized a few seconds later that she had truly crossed over into a 3-year-old child, not just dreaming. In a daze, I felt like my grandmother was holding her out of bed with both hands. Zhu Xiuyun dressed her in clothes, shoes, and socks, and carried her to the restroom first. The restroom was also very modern, and after using it, she directly flushed the water. Zhu Xiuyun took a basin of warm water and washed her face. Su Qing looked at her grandmother with pitch-black eyes, but why didn't she see her mother? Seeing her granddaughter's confusion in her eyes, Zhu Xiuyun said, "Your mother should go and invite Uncle Air and the village chief to discuss things." The Su family is an old household in Shanquan village, where they have lived for hundreds of years and have a high reputation in the village. Otherwise, how could Su Jing become the village chief? Unfortunately, after his death, there was no one in the Su family who could bear the burden, and the village chief could only give it to someone else's family. Don't be fooled by a small village chief who doesn't have much power, but also controls all the snacks, drinks, and activities in the village. The current village chief is called Wu Yud, who is relatively fair in character, but not as shrewd as Su Jing. However, Shanquan village is not a bustling village, and Wu Yud is completely capable of being the village chief. Su Jing has a younger brother named Su Feng. There are 2 sons in the family, both of whom have not yet started a family and are like honest acquaintances. They have a 3rd-level talent as interstellar warriors and have not learned special combat skills or body refining techniques. No one in the village has the money to attend a higher education. They just finished their junior classes in the town. It's not just about earning money and blindly learning numbers. It's also good to go home and plant plants and fight against exotic animals with their parents. Their ancestors didn't all come this way. Wu Yud and Su Feng were called over by Su Mingwan to preside over justice. They asked for a while along the way, but the child didn't say anything, just cried. After washing Qingqing's face at home, Zhu Xiuyun returned to the living room and took out several bags of nutritious batter from the refrigerator. What flavor does Qingqing eat? Pink radish, green spinach, white wheat, and yellow corn. Su Qing blinked her eyes and said, "What's going on? Is this enough for breakfast?" She still can't figure out the situation. Fortunately, her mother is busy and sad, and her grandmother doesn't have much contact with her. She didn't notice anything unusual about her, so it's better to observe in secret first and gradually understand the world. I have always felt a bit strange at home. Even if I use things normally, there are no language barriers. She still feels that something is not right. Why should the food be made into a batter? Is it difficult to make it a special food for children? She didn't speak either, just pointed to the yellow corn flavor and chose the safe one to taste first. She never expected that breakfast would be bagged, so just drink it as corn batter. Zhu Xiuyun opened the yellow nutritional paste, poured it into a bowl, and gave it to her. Su Qing looked at the yellow liquid in the bowl and smelled it without much smell. She tried to take a sip and said, "Oh my goodness. What's this feeling like eating a mouthful of wood residue, with a slight taste of corn that she couldn't compare to eating corn before, even though it was also stimulated by fertilizer. Is it really not earth here?" Su Qing had a hard time swallowing this slushy mouthful, but didn't want to drink the rest. Zhu Xiuyun saw that she didn't drink anymore and advised softly, "Qingqing, you're almost finished drinking. You won't be hungry anymore. Wait until your grandmother cooks something delicious for you tonight." Zhu Xiuyun knows that synthetic food is not delicious. When her husband was alive, the family could still eat energy food every day. As the village chief, they receive subsidies from the empire, and every time they enter the mountains, they reap rewards. Their family is not at a loss. After her husband's death, the family was immediately struggling, and the money she had accumulated needed to be prevented. How could she be willing to spend it? She had to eat these things every day, and children definitely didn't like them. Su Qing is not a child, so she can be picky. Isn't it just a bit unpleasant? Just fill your stomach and take a deep gulp of the remaining corn batter. Zhu Xiuyun wiped her mouth when someone entered the courtyard door. Su Qing turned her head to look. Su Mingwan walked into the room with 2 middle-aged men, and it was village chief Wu Yud and her uncle Su Feng who arrived. Before Wu Yud could sit down, he urgently asked, "Sister-in-law, what are you asking me about?" Without asking Mingwan, she kept crying and wondered if the Li family had bullied her again. Su Feng walked in and called out for his sister-in-law, then sat in a chair without saying a word. He was introverted and not good at speaking, so he smiled and touched Su Qing's head. Zhu Xiuyun's eyes immediately turned red. Village chief, the Li family is bullying too much. You must make the decision for me. Su Feng, let's go to the Li family to settle the accounts. You call Su Ping and Suan, and find justice for her sister. We must not spare them this time. Wu Yid frowned and said, tell me exactly what's going on. A clean official is difficult to handle household affairs, and the Su and Li families are in a mess. Mingwan herself is willing, but who would be willing to stand up for her? A good daughter is being bullied by a family of outsiders. The Li family is going back to the Blue Morning Star, and Li Mubai is going to abandon Mingwan and divorce her. Last night, I had a scene at the Li family and almost got angry by that shameless family. Since that's the case, let's get a divorce, but we can't give them a cheap deal. Let them compensate for the loss of my family's Mingzhuan's youth over the years, and make a living for their family. My men all died for that beastly Mubai. This family is like a white-eyed wolf, with no human nature. After listening, Wu Yid felt angry in his heart, there's this matter, let's go now. Shanquan village is not just about his Li family coming and leaving whenever they want. Su Mingwan is such a good girl. The young men in the village were thinking about her back then, but she was taken away by an outsider. Her son was angry about it for a long time and has not married a wife since then. Even Su Feng, who had a wilting temper, was angry. There was no Li family like him who was abusive. My niece used to be brainwashed and devoted herself wholeheartedly to the Li family, even risking her elder brother's life. How could he not be angry? But with a despicable niece, what else can he do? That's the lifeblood of his elder brother's eyes, doting on him from childhood to adulthood. If he were to say that the child was spoiled, raised indiscriminately, selfish, and self-centered, he would only consider himself. What kind of thing can be eaten as a meal, whether you love it or not? Besides being good-looking, the Li family kid is a bit outstanding. Whenever he thinks of his older brother's miserable breath, his heart aches. Let's get divorced. His Su family is not easy to bully, don't just use it and kick him away. Go ahead, sister-in-law. I'll go home and call my son his mother and Su Ping and Suan to settle accounts with the Li family. Su Feng thought to himself that his wife was also a capable advocate, bringing cheers to her sister-in-law. Zhang Liang, that unruly woman, is very capable of causing trouble. Zhu Xiuyun picked up Su Qing, took his daughter and the village head, and walked to the Li family. This time the matter was not settled. The Li family did not want to stop. Divorce was not the final say. The laws of the empire are very sound, and the protection of women and children is comprehensive. However, Dream Moon Star is too remote, and many villagers are legal illiterate. After all, Zhu Xiuyun is the wife of the village chief, so she knows a little about the law. She understood that as long as the woman persisted in not divorcing and had children, the court would not rule on divorce. Even if divorced, the woman and children's alimony could not be reduced. Many imperial men dare not divorce, mainly because they cannot afford to pay for their support. The Li family is bullying the people in the mountains who don't understand the law. Today, let them know that they kicked the iron plate. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Door Theory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Door Theory. Su Qing snuggled up in her grandmother's arms, surveying the surrounding environment. Every household was built with stone houses and walls. In the early morning, I didn't see anyone's roof lit up with cooking smoke. Don't the villagers have breakfast? Everyone dresses very much like the 90s style of Earth, and there are no public facilities on the streets. There are many trees, and some people have also planted flowers in their courtyards, with large flowers blooming. In the distance, there is a field where I don't know what to plant. There are already people watering and weeding in the field, which is no different from rural areas around the world. The Li family got up in the morning, had dinner, and discussed which spaceship to take back to and where to stay at the Blue Morning Star. Their eldest son and 4 of them were also present, and the whole family was smiling and chatting. Li Muyun did not expect to return to the Blue Morning Star in his lifetime. His hometown is a medium-sized planet, which is 100 times stronger than Dream Moon Star. Dream Moon Star is just a remote primitive planet, and he doesn't know how to survive for 10 years. My youngest son was born here, and when I think about 2 children, I won't be able to receive a good education in the future. To be with a group of ignorant mountain people, the couple couldn't sleep well night and night, and being able to go back was simply a blessing from heaven. They chatted happily, and no one cared that there were 2 missing members in their family. The Li family never took Su Mingwan and her daughter to heart. According to their idea, they found a free nanny at home. Even if Li Muyun's character was good, he was accustomed to treating the people of Dream Moon Star as lowly people. The courtyard door clanged and was kicked open from outside. The Li family frowned and looked out, wondering who was so impolite. Zhu Xiuyun walked in first with Su Qing in her arms, followed by Wu Yud and Su Mingwan. Li Chuanzhong, Zhang Liang, get out of here. I'm going to scratch the faces of both of you shameless and disgusting little people. Zhang Liang let out a growl and ran out, with both hands inserted into her waist, angrily shouting. Zhu Xiuyun, it's not pleasant for you to come up the pole again. You made a scene last night, but you still came today. You really think our Li family is being bullied? Zhu Xiuyun sneered and said, Zhang Liang, it's fortunate that you often show off that you come from a big place, understand manners and rules, and look down on us mountain people. I think the most unruly way to do things is for you Li family, ungrateful and shameless villains. What you do is not called human affairs. Who bullies who, don't you know? I pooh. A white-eyed wolf, shameless. You forget, what did you do when you first came to the village? Now you dare to show your teeth to me. Li Chuanzhong, come out and let's talk about how you knelt and licked my old Su back then. Old Su died trying to save your son. You are ungrateful and bullying my daughter, so you are not worthy of being human. I don't usually talk about my daughter, but now I want your son to divorce her. Your conscience has been eaten by the dog. Zhu Xiuyun started cursing when she came to her door, every word of which was inseparable from the shameless and heartless Li family. Originally, it was for the sake of her daughter. Zhu Xiuyun has never torn open this fig leaf. Since everyone is going to divorce, what face is there to save? Su Qing looked at the middle-aged woman who had run out first, dressed in a long dress, with fair skin and neatly coiled hair behind her head. She didn't speak and had a noble demeanor, and when she spoke, she was like a shrew. The people of the Li family, except for Zhang Liang, have thick skin and don't think much of it. The few people in the room all have some hot faces and very ugly expressions. It should be because what they are saying is true. In the eyes of the Li family, the villagers are all lowly people. Although they are exiled, their bloodline is also more noble than theirs, and they have never treated the villagers equally with themselves. What kind of equal treatment do the lowly people need? At first, they just endured hardships, but now they are not waiting for news to return. Now Zhu Xiuyun poked open the matter and tore apart the fig leaf on the faces of the Li family. What they did was not authentic and would be despised by thousands of people in the Blue Morning Star. However, when dealing with lower-class people, they did not call it a matter at all, and no one would hold them accountable. Humph, there's nothing heartless and ungrateful about it. However, our family is a lowly person with muddy legs. It's your blessing to be able to serve our family. Can you compare with us? We are nobles, and even in adversity, we are more noble than your bloodline. Zhang Liang sneered and looked down upon Zhu Xiuyun, who was the wife of a big family. Zhu Xiuyun doesn't even deserve to lift her shoes. What's wrong with using their family? He's a lowly person like a pig. You are really shameless. Zhu Xiuyun was so angry that she couldn't bear to see someone as shameless as Zhang Liang at her age. She took the kindness others gave her for granted, squeezing others and treating them as despicable and inferior. Why didn't I see their families' disgusting faces before? They pretended too well. Alright, sister. Law, don't talk nonsense to her. Where are the men from the Li family? They all come out. Why are they hiding? They can do shameless things and are afraid of being talked about. If you don't want to divorce Mingwan, then talk about the terms. Otherwise, your family won't be able to leave Shanquan village intact. Our mountain people are hospitable and sincere, but they are not easy to bully. They really treat our kindness as disrespectful. I see who dares. Wu Yud served as the village chief for several years, developing an official aura and speaking with a resounding voice. Zhang Liang looked at him with a slanted gaze, not paying any attention. Li Chuanzhong was a man and couldn't hide behind a woman without showing his face. He had to step out with a hypocritical smile on his face and said, "Oh my, the village chief is here." Sitting inside, the women are arguing with each other, and it's not easy for us big men to interject. Wu Yud's face was as heavy as water, and his gaze fixed on him, saying, "We won't go inside. Let's open the skylight and speak frankly. Your whole family is going back to the Blue Morning Star to live a good life, and we want to kick Mingwan, this foolish girl, away. Don't worry, we girls in the mountains won't cling to each other. If you want a divorce, we can negotiate terms. If we're satisfied, your family will move out. If you're not satisfied, we'll see if you can leave Shanquan village." It is said that out of poverty and adversity, there are unruly people. The people in the mountains are simple, kind, and very united. As long as one person is bullied, the whole village will go up. It is not reasonable to reason with them, but they will acknowledge their own reasons and fight before speaking. When the Li family first arrived, if it weren't for currying favor with Su Jing, and later when Su Mingwan married Li Mubai, they would have picked up their tails and been punished by the villagers long ago. Li Chuanzhong understood the current situation and looked at Zhu Xiuyun holding the child and Su Mingwan with swollen eyes, feeling a deep hatred in his heart. Two despicable people from a broken household background dare to negotiate terms with him, but they have to bow their heads under the eaves. It's easy to say, it's easy to say. "Mu Yun, hurry up and bring out a few chairs to make for everyone," he said with a smirk. A few stools were moved out, and Zhu Xiuyun was the first to sit on them while Wu Yud sat down in a chair without hesitation. Li Chuanzhong's eyes flickered sharply, but his face chuckled and he sat still. Li Muyun moved another square table and brought each person a glass of water. Zhang Liang was a bit dissatisfied with her son's hospitality, but she didn't say a word. This was basic courtesy, but it was just a waste of time for a few lowly people. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Conditions for Divorce. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Conditions for Divorce. Su Qing guessed that the elderly man and woman were her grandparents, and the one who moved chairs for everyone was the uncle. Why didn't her father come out? It's been a long time since Su Mingwan started dating her parents, and she's still living in the house. What kind of man would make Su Mingwan sever ties with her parents and marry him? Zhu Xiuyun came to settle accounts with the Li family in a fierce manner. Some villagers had already seen it, and many people gathered around the Li family's doorstep, pointing at the courtyard. Sufeng and his wife, along with their son, rushed angrily and stood next to their sister. Law to cheer. Your family is going back to the Blue Morning Star to live a good life, and Mingwan is useless. She just wants to kick her and leave her biological daughter behind, right? You think it's beautiful. You think marriage is something you can get married and leave as you please. Over the years, my daughter's youth and hard work, as well as the life of my old Su, how can your Li family compensate for it? Zhu Xiuyun shouted her last sentence, tears welled up. If it weren't for her daughter and Li Mubai, could her husband have died, making her a widow? What about Li Mubai? Let him come out and kill our old Su's white-eyed wolf. He didn't pursue it in front of my daughter back then, but now he wants to abandon her and enjoy his own life. Let's figure out how to compensate us first. The Li family is shameless and has no conscience in their actions. They bully others too much and do not treat them as human beings. They are only tools that can be used. If her husband is dead, then she will have to pay more compensation. She has always looked down on people, and only her foolish daughter is a treasure. The Su family looked at the Li family with hatred. The heartless white-eyed wolf always said that they had no manners, no quality, and ground beetle, the Li family, on the other hand, have a dark and cold-blooded heart, are despicable and shameless. People from the medium galaxy are like this, and they would rather stay in Shanquan village forever. The Li family also has a sense of shame. Even if the villagers are all lower class and not in the same social class as them, they cannot bear the aristocratic airs when exiled here. They still have a sense of right and wrong in their hearts. Li Chuanzhong's face turned ugly and he asked, "So what do you want?" Wu Yud first said, "Let Li Mubai come out. They are going to divorce, so they dare to take it upon themselves. What are they hiding in the house for? Do they feel ashamed to see others?" Humph. Li Chuanzhong snorted and gestured for his eldest son to come out. After a while, Li Mubai walked slowly to the courtyard and stood behind his father. When Su Qing saw Li Mubai, he felt a bright light in his eyes. He was indeed a handsome young man. Li Mubai has a cheerful and long figure, fair skin, handsome eyebrows and beautiful eyes, and a gentle aura on his body. It doesn't match the temperament of the mountain people very well. Such a good appearance can make Su Mingwan, a simple and foolish girl, give up her heart for a reason. There is a saying that good appearance is justice, and a person who looks good is praised for everything they say. Wu Yud asked, "Mu Bai, I really want to divorce Mingwan. This child is also someone that everyone has watched grow up with. The only downside is that he is too lazy, doesn't like to work, is timid, and is spoiled by the Li family couple. The man with interstellar warrior talent these days doesn't go out and sacrifice his life to earn unless he has a good job in a big city. So the villagers don't look up to men like Li Mubai. His brother dares to go up the mountain and fight against strange beasts, and his skills are pretty good. There's no problem supporting his family, so he relies on his wife to support him every day. He's just a waste." Li Mubai bowed to Wu Yud, "Village chief, I originally came from the Li family of the Blue Morning Star, but I was stranded in Shanquan village. My parents thought we couldn't go back in our lifetime, so they let me marry Mingwan. Now we can go back. I can only apologize to Mingwan. No matter how much you hate me, our marriage must come to an end. We are not one person from the world at all, and being bound together will not bring happiness. Haven't you had enough of my parents' struggles yet? Our divorce is a relief for you." Wu Yud snorted coldly and said, "No matter how well you say it, you can't hide your shameless behavior of abandoning your wife and children." Li Mubai still needs to explain that Li Chuanzhong is not willing. His youngest son is talented and good-looking. They still have to rely on their son to get married to a noblewoman, so that they can quickly regain their original status. How can they make him suffer injustice and be ridiculed by the foolish people? Alright, don't talk about those useless things. My son is just getting divorced. Can you talk about your conditions?" Zhu Xiuyun looked at him with disdainful eyes and said, "Condition, if you want a divorce, according to imperial law, you don't know what to do. Don't bully us mountain people who don't understand anything. The Galactic Empire protects the rights of women and children, and you don't want Mingwan and Qing. Sure, just provide enough child support, otherwise we won't get divorced and we'll settle with you." Li Chuanzhong originally thought that getting divorced was easy, but with their usual attitude towards Su Mingwan, the Su family would definitely be eager to agree immediately. Unexpectedly, this mountain woman still understands the law. "How much support do you want?" "Qing needs to be raised until she reaches the age of 18. As long as Mingwan doesn't get married for a day, we have to give her 1 day of support. We'll give her 10 years first. I don't think you can compensate enough for the life of our old Su. I'd rather he lives." The expenses in the mountains are small, and I don't want much either. You won't come back to the village house either. Leave it for Qing and give us 2 million interstellar coins for the rest. Everyone in the Li family's face changed dramatically. Zhu Xiuyun dared a lion to speak up, 2 million yuan. You should know that even when they were at their best in the Blue Morning Star, their total assets were less than 5 million yuan, and she spoke up for 2 million yuan. It's really a lion's mouth. Su Qing sat in Zhu Xiuyun's arms, watching everyone with different expressions. Only Su Mingwan ignored them and stared at her husband Li Mubai with red and swollen eyes. The person she loves to the heart has never loved herself, she is just a tool. Li Mubai lowered his head and didn't look at her at all. They also have happy times, but Mingwan is not the type she likes. If he has been living in Shanquan village all along, he will accept his fate. Since he can leave, why continue this marriage of compromise? Su Qing sighed with mockery in her heart. Men are all the same in the world, and there is no love like Jin Jian. It's just a lie. The most despicable thing about the Li family is to use a girl's simple ignorance to act like a cow or a horse for them, without the bottom line of being a good person. A piercing scream came in my ear. Zhu Xiuyun, you're a dead woman. I've had enough of you long ago. If you want money, you don't even have a door. Humph, if you don't pay, then it depends on who can endure until the end. Anyway, we won't divorce. If you dare to leave, I will report your son to the town. Abandoning your wife and child is a serious crime in the empire. After being publicized on the internet, your son's reputation has been completely destroyed, and there will be a big stain left in his files. If it is confirmed by his super brain, you can go to prison to see your son on the internet. It's better to exile him. Zhu Xiuyun knew that these were all things Su Jing had told her before. Village Chief Su is a very visionary person who enjoys reading current affairs news, learning about important imperial events, and also knows a lot about the law. He often shares examples with his wife. The most talked about divorce is because he is not optimistic about his daughter's marriage and has prepared in advance. Li Chuanzhong's face stiffened and he said, even so, you can't speak up like a lion. You want 2 million. We were exiled to Dream Moon Star 10 years ago, and we don't have any money in our hands. Mingwan, you don't love Mu Bai very much. You are willing to do anything for him. Your mother's words don't count. Marriage is yours, how much support do you need? Knowing that Zhu Xiuyun is not easy to deal with, why not turn your gaze to Su Mingwan? End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Surrender. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Surrender. I don't know. Mu Bai can change as he says. What else is true? I'll listen to my mother. Upon hearing the question, Su Mingwan was first surprised and bewildered, then showed a hint of sadness and a bitter smile. Without getting angry, she said, I used to be disobedient, but now I want to be a good daughter. Su Qing pulled off her grandmother's sleeve and whispered, Grandma, how much does it cost to spend alone every month and how much does it cost to go to school? It depends on how you live. Eating genetically modified foods every day is enough for 100 interstellar coins per month, and eating energy foods is not enough for 10,000 interstellar coins. It doesn't cost much to go to school in the town, and it costs 5,000 yuan per year to go to the city. You also have to live in. Zhu Xiuyun suddenly froze, while Qing was talking to her. Isn't this child speechless? Everyone thought she was mute, but they didn't expect the child to say that if it weren't for the Li family, Zhu Xiuyun would jump up with joy. Su Qing thought to herself, genetically modified food must be the kind she drank in the morning, it's too unpleasant, an energy food is a normal natural food, a month of 110,000, a year of 120,000, 10 years of 120,000, shaking her head, the Li family won't give it, not to mention she still has to go to school and her mother's support. The crowd in the courtyard was noisy, and Su Feng's wife and Zhang Liying had a big argument. Su Feng's wife said she would compensate their family for one life, while Zhang Liying said she had no money. Don't treat her family as a scapegoat. Li Chuanzhong and Wu Yud frowned tightly, and no one noticed that Su Qing could speak. With a slap on the table, Wu Yud shouted, "All right, stop arguing, we can't solve the problem." Looking at Li Chuanzhong, "You are the head of the family. The imperial laws protect the rights and interests of women and children. First, say how much alimony you can give Qing and Mingwan." This. Li Chuanzhong's mind was quickly calculating, and he didn't pay much attention to his daughter-in-law and granddaughter. He also had to give a sum of money. It feels like cutting his heart and soul. Why do despicable mothers and daughters want them to pay for their support, but if they don't pay, they can't get divorced? Where are the laws of the empire? Who allowed Mu Bai and Su Mingwan to obtain a marriage certificate? They are legally married. Originally, the people in the mountains did not pay attention to obtaining a marriage certificate, and they only held a ceremony to get married, but Su Mingwan refused, saying that if she didn't get a marriage certificate, they wouldn't be a formal couple, and her father wouldn't forgive her. The Li couple didn't hesitate much before agreeing. If only they knew they wouldn't agree back then. With his son's ability, Su Mingwan would agree sooner or later to see if there were any hidden dangers left behind. After thinking for a while, he finally said, "Village chief, you also know that our family was exiled, so we don't have that much money. We haven't had much income in recent years, so we can only give them a maximum of 100,000 interstellar coins." Upon hearing this, Zhu Xiuyun didn't pay much attention to her youth and immediately raised her eyebrows. "Pooh, 100,000 yuan, you have the face to say it. How did you deceive Mingwan back then, saying that your family was wealthy and brought a large amount of interstellar coins and treasures from the Blue Morning Star, worth more than 10 million yuan? Why are you crying poverty with me now?" Zhu Xiuyun's words flashed a cold light in Li Chuanzhong's eyes, and he immediately looked at his son. How could they casually say that they have over 10 million yuan and various antique treasures in their hands? If it weren't for this money, could their family have wandered here? Li Mubai's body shrank. It wasn't a wild boast when pursuing Mingwan. How did he know if it was there? He just heard his mother mention it a few times. That's all big talk from the child. Take it seriously. Our family's assets were confiscated back then, so we still have money. There are still 3 caddies of nails on the rotten boat. I don't believe you don't have any in your hands. Anyway, 2 million, otherwise you'll take Qing with you. I don't want to raise your family's seeds yet. After speaking confidently, send the child to Zhang Liuying's side. Zhang Liuying was like a cat with its tail stepped on, jumping high and screaming. You can't throw this girl's film to our family. My son is carrying a mop, how can he marry a noblewoman? With these words, Su Mingwan suddenly looked up at her. Zhu Xiuyun was furious and finally understood the Li family's plan. Li Mubai's face turned red. If there was a crack on the ground, he would have slipped in, which was too embarrassing. Li Chuanzhong's expression was gloomy. Damn it, what are you talking nonsense about? There's no such thing as daydreaming every day. The Li couple used to have a somewhat aristocratic demeanor in the Blue Morning Star, but even if the aristocrats didn't eat or drink, they couldn't do it. After 10 years in Shanquan village, there has been little difference between Li Chuanzhong and the villagers. Li Chuanzhong feels that his wife has completely become a shrew. Is it nonsense? You all know it in your heart. I mean, why are you in a hurry to get a divorce? I'm planning to exchange my son for wealth and status. Zhu Xiuyun hit the nail on the head and broke through the Li family's plan, allowing everyone to further understand the selfishness and shamelessness of human nature. Su Mingxuan's mind was booming as she thought, they haven't divorced yet, and my mother. Law has planned for Mu Bai to marry a wealthy and noble daughter. She is foolish and has never left her hometown. The farthest place to go is the town. Having limited knowledge, I was attracted by a man's external appearance. A few good words made me die without regret for him. However, now I realize that I simply take my true feelings and let others trample on me. for this reason, she was willing to disobey her parents and marry this irresponsible man, indirectly causing her father's accidental death, all because she did not listen to her parents' advice. A wave of hatred ignited in Su Mingjuan's heart, and she stared fiercely at Li Mubai. Zhang Liang raised her head and proudly said, "Anyway, we're all going to get divorced, and in the future, we won't be able to interact with each other. You don't care what we plan on, we can't control your family's climbing branches, but we should also be able to get a divorce. It's easy to say anything about giving money, and if we don't have it, we can just imagine it's easy to pass. 2 million is definitely not available. You live in Shanquan village, how much money can you spend? Mingwan is also capable and cannot afford to raise the young." Li Chuanzhong didn't want to give money to the mother and daughter, so he had to continue grinding. "You don't care how much money I can spend. If we have money, we can eat delicious food and drink spicy food. We can send our children to study and get into good schools in the future. Our children are the seeds of your Li family. Don't try to blame us all if you don't raise them." Puzzle. Zhang Liang sneered, "A mute, what school should I attend?" Zhang Liang, this child has your family's bloodline. If you despise her, it's either because you despise yourself. You don't even want your own flesh and blood. How cold and ruthless you are to be able to do it. Zhang Liang's eyes tilted at her and she said, "We don't have any speechless trash in our family. The Li family has unique talents and a fusion of low-blooded children, so we don't want them." When women start arguing endlessly, Wuyud quickly interjects if he wants to digress from the topic. "Sister-in-law, at the very least you need more money, just give me a precise estimate." Zhu Xiuyun pondered for a moment and knew that even if the Li family had more, they would not agree. She deliberately offered a large sum and slowly negotiated, otherwise the Li family and his wife would probably not want to leave it to the Qing mother and daughter for 100,000 yuan. 1 million, it can't be any lower. My old Su family is gone, and the compensation is not much. 1 million, we really can't get it out. Su's sister. Law, there are countless mistakes. It's all my family's fault, it's my improper parenting. We apologize to Mingwan. Mu Bai really can't live with Mingwan. If you insist on getting 1 million, we can't get it out. Why don't you take Mingchuan's mother and daughter with you? End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Negotiations. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Negotiations. Li Chuanzhong smiled insincerely. After all, he came from a big place and had a deep and cunning mind. He had already seen it, Zhu Xiuyun would not agree to let Su Mingwan and her daughter go with them. Although they never intended to bring that mother and daughter with them, it was still possible to deceive each other. As soon as she said these words, Su Mingjuan's eyes lit up, but Li Mubai and Zhu Xiuyun's faces changed drastically. "Dad, how could you do this?" Zhu Xiuyun's heart was flustered, and her face was relatively calm. "How much do you want to give? You have 10 million in your hands, but you are unwilling to give your granddaughter 1 million in support. Your heart is ruthless enough. Alright, take Qing away, my daughter only needs 800,000 yuan alone. Come on. Mutual harm, what kind of calculations does Li Chuanzhong have? She knows very well, back then, it was like this. Watching my daughter suffer, I gritted my teeth and didn't care. If it weren't for Mingwan getting pregnant in the end, could they have lost? This compromise comes at the cost of the husband's life. Today she has to put in a lot of effort, even if they take Qing away, she won't object." Li Chuanzhong was a bit surprised. This woman is quite impressive. I didn't realize before that Qing and his team would never take it, but giving them so much money is really unwilling. Su Qing stood by her grandmother's lap, listening to the intense competition from both sides, bargaining and bargaining. Her pitch-black eyes glanced down at the lost and inexperienced mother, then at her unfamiliar father, without feeling anything. Su Qing was sent to an orphanage at the age of 2 and never expected affection from her parents. Now, she is the soul of an adult and doesn't care if she has parents. But this couple is really top notch. One is brainless and disregards love to death, while the other is lazy and greedy for enjoyment. When there are good days, they will abandon their wives and children, pat their buttocks and leave to enjoy themselves. Anyway, both husband and wife are individuals with unethical behavior and values. They are both self-centered, selfish, and only care about their own feelings, completely disregarding their loved ones. Su Mingwan may seem pitiful, but for her own love, she suffered from the love of her grandmother and deceased grandfather for her daughter, which was just a self-inflicted act. After a fierce negotiation, it was finally determined that the Li family would give Su Mingwan and her daughter 500,000 interstellar coins in support, and all the village properties and planting fields would be left to Qing. Under the leadership of Wu Yud, they went to the village chief's office, opened the only computer in the village, downloaded the divorce agreement, and signed the terms. Su Mingwan and Li Mubai signed a divorce agreement online and applied for a time to go to the town to complete the procedures. At this point, the entanglement between the two families was completely over, and Li Chuanzhong transferred 500,000 interstellar coins to Zhu Xiuyun at that time. As long as the video confirmation signature is on the optical brain, even if the nail on the board has not run away, he is not afraid that Su Mingwan will retract. The two families walked out of the village chief's office expressionless, with Zhu Xiuyun holding Qing in his hand. When Li Mubai walked past his daughter, he stopped and crouched down. Qing, Dad is sorry for you. Your mom and I divorced, and we can't be with you anymore. Don't hate Dad. Li Mubai is usually okay with Qing, after all, he is his own daughter, but he himself is extremely lazy and doesn't want to do anything. Su Mingwan also has to work on a regular basis, and the child is taken care of by Zhang Liang at home. Before Qing turned 1 year old, she was still interested. After testing her talent, she no longer treated her granddaughter well. What's the use of a useless person without talent? After the age of 1, Qing has been locked up at home and often scolded by her. Li Mubai also protects his daughter. Originally, Qing was very close to her father. Su Qing stared at him. Probably it would be difficult to see his biological father again in the future, neither on the same planet, even more distant than between heaven and earth. She just saw the village chief using his brain to apply for divorce for her parents, and realized that the world was too strange. Even though people's clothing and housing were not advanced, why is there actually an optical brain in the village, which is dozens of times more advanced than the computer technology on Earth, and can even create holographic images to chat with people on the other side? So both parties in the divorce application can confirm online and then go to the government to handle the procedures, which is too advanced. Su Qing nodded to Li Mubai, understanding that her father's choice was just not doing things properly. Li Mubai looked at the little person who was less than 1 meter tall, white and tender, but a bit thin and weak. His small face looked very similar to his own, and he still felt a bit sad. After all, it was his own daughter. He took off an emerald pendant from his neck, hung it around Su Qing's neck, hugged his daughter, got up, and left. Zhang Liang still complained about how she gave the jade pendant given by her grandfather to that useless person, but was scolded by Li Chuanzhong without saying a word. Li Chuanzhong's idea is to never make unnecessary mistakes. A jade pendant is not worth money. The most valuable items in the empire now are energy stones and various spiritual medicines. Zhang Liang remained silent. She was afraid of any future troubles before leaving, so she quickly left this wilderness. She couldn't bear it. She didn't know how to survive these 10 years, and there was no place to look as bright as before. Su Qing silently watched as the Li family walked away, her small hands caressing the emerald green jade pendant. The village government of Shanquan village has a large courtyard of several hundred square meters with a row of houses, including the village chief's office and duty room. At night, villagers take turns to be on duty, while the rest are all warehouses storing the village's supplies and machinery. Su Qing saw a lot of high-tech equipment here, such as the village chief's office's optical brain, a type of light board on the roof resembling air conditioning, and the warehouse door, which seemed to be connected directly to the village chief's office's optical brain through intelligent brain control. She was confused about what kind of world she had traveled to, where primitive and high-tech coexisted, as well as supernatural abilities and interstellar warriors. There wouldn't have been an interstellar fleet in the Star Wars, right? It's really weird, forget it, she's still young. Let's gradually understand this world. Hold on to Grandma's hand and walk out of the yard. The most important thing is that life can start over. Perhaps this is the parallel universe of Earth, otherwise, how could she still call her original name? She was either transported to a parallel world or her spiritual body was activated in another world. Zhu Xiuyun kept thanking the village chief, while Wu Yud smiled and waved his hand. Sister-in-law, this is not a big deal. As fellow villagers for many years, we can't let aliens bully us anymore. Alright, let's all go back. The family returned home and sat in the living room, saying what to do in the future. Su Mingwan still looked like she was about to die or lose her soul. Su Feng's wife, Wang Sanmei, said in a cheerful voice. Mingwan, cheer up. There are many good men in the world, and Li Mubai is just a pretentious soft rice man. It's not worth shedding tears over such a thing. Take good care of it for a while, and my aunt will introduce you to a good young man. Su Mingwan stood up abruptly and angrily shouted, I don't want it. Quickly walked to the entrance of the inner room, lifted the curtain, and ran into the bed, sobbing. The sad crying was like cutting through Zhu Xiuyun's heart, tears streaming down her face. She knew that her daughter hated her and didn't support her. She asked the Li family to take her with her and insisted on divorcing Li Mubai. Sister-in-law, don't cry. Mingwan is young and immature. How could she know? After leaving Shanquan village, we are nothing. The blue morning star and dream moon star are separated by several galaxies, and she has been bullied. We can't make decisions for her, and we may never see each other in our lifetime. She took out a handkerchief in her hand to wipe her sister-in-law's tears, which made her want to cry. If it weren't for Mingwan's insistence on marrying Li Mubai, his elder brother wouldn't have died. Now that he is still the village chief, the lives of the Su family would have been better. End of this chapter.